luxury minimalist, I've always wondered whether or not bouquets like these that are preserved for over 3 years are actually worth the money because they have such a high price tag. So because my husband knows that I absolutely love flowers, but I hate having to care for them, he actually bought me this bouquet of over 30 roses that are preserved for over 3 years. There are a lot of companies that sell roses like these, Venus et Fleur, the Million Roses, and many more. So I'm going to review whether or not I think these types of roses are truly worth the money, and there are definitely some pros and cons you have to consider when it comes to buying preserved flowers like this. Let's get into it. One of the things you need to pay attention when you research this is how long these flowers are going to last, because it definitely varies between companies. This one that my husband chose to buy from is called the Million Roses. Theirs actually have the longest lasting flowers that I've found so far. It lasts for about 3 years, and most of the companies say that their flowers last about 1 year, and that includes popular ones like Venus et Fleur, and it all comes down to the preservation method. However, the downside to a Million Roses is that I feel a couple other brands have a bit more of a refined taste like Venus et Fleur and have a more elevated and timeless design. But let's get down to whether or not it's actually worth it based on the price. My husband paid $300 for a bouquet of 30 flowers that last over 3 years. So that means it's about $100 a year. So if you spend more than $100 a year on flower arrangements, these eternity flowers may be a much better use of your money. I do have to warn you that most of these flower companies don't allow returns because they say that they're custom made, which in my case, I was not a huge fan of the flower arrangement that my husband bought me, unfortunately, and I actually wanted to return them. And I'll talk a little bit more about how that experience went a little bit later. If you want this from your husband or a significant other, that you actually find a design you like and send it to them instead of them guessing, because then you don't need to try and figure out ways to return it when it's actually not part of their policy. So let's talk about the pros and cons of whether or not you should even buy these kinds of roses. One thing I completely did not expect from these roses is that once I opened the box, it smelled amazing, and it still does after a month of me having this. It has the smell of fresh roses, which is very surprising because you would expect it not to smell so nice when it's been preserved for so long. If you are sensitive to smells though, this is normally the strongest in scent when you first open it up for the first day or two, but afterwards it's only if you put your face really close and sniff it that you'll smell the scent of roses. So it shouldn't be too big of an issue for you. Another downside is that these should not be exposed to direct sunlight. So if you have a beautiful large house with many windows facing south and you want to display it there, it's definitely going to shorten the lifetime of your bouquets, and it may not actually be worth it for you if they end up dying off earlier. I do think that buying roses like this is the most sustainable way to enjoy flowers. Even though it does require quite a bit of upfront cost, you don't actually need to keep buying flowers over and over again. And when it comes to those bouquets of flowers that are fresh, there's a lot of emissions that go along with the shipping, and it tends to be a lot more work because you have to maintain it. So I definitely think this is the best low maintenance way to enjoy natural flowers, but then not have to take care of them if you're lazy like me. Even though these can be quite pricey, I do have a secret or two about getting it at the best price. The best part about buying this as a gift is that because they last so long, you can actually buy it on the best sale days, which in my opinion are on Black Friday and Cyber Monday. You can buy it and then wait for a month or two to give it on either Christmas or Valentine's Day. I am thinking about coming up with a video filled with timeless luxury gift ideas that in my opinion are worth the spend. Let me know if that's something that interests you in the comments down below. And if I do end up completing that, I'll link it down in the description below. The next thing you want to look into is the design of the roses. These are very customizable. In most sites, you can pick your favorite colors and match it with your favorite color of box. So it's very easy to design to your aesthetic. Don't do the mistake that I did and not share pictures of my favorite kind of bouquets and flowers with your hubby or with your significant other before they buy it, because honestly, I'm not a huge fan of this particular design because I just don't think it's as timeless and it doesn't match my decor at home. It's more neutrals, and I find the gold on the box a little bit too flashy. I would prefer something like a white or a black box with gold lettering. My husband originally picked this design because these roses in the middle were dipped in 24K gold, which he thought was very special. And honestly, when he showed me the pictures on the site, I thought they were gorgeous. But when you see it in person, it definitely does not give you that same luxurious feel. It looks definitely a bit more fake and worn in the middle. And because you can see these white parts poking out, it just looks I guess for the lack of a better word, it just looks fake. And so I would much rather have a full box of natural, either red roses, white roses, beige, pink, something like that. And it's also more timeless. It'd be easier to fit into most people's decor if they're a bit more minimalist. When it comes to finding a more timeless design, I highly recommend staying with the more normal shapes like circular round ones or a square box instead of going with something like a heart. Not that I have anything against love, but especially if you want it to blend into your home decor, you don't necessarily want to have something that's super out there. So I was pretty intimidated because most of my research shows that you cannot return custom bouquets like this. And even though in their refund policy it says that you can't return these roses, the Million Roses does have a 100% money back guarantee. So I actually reached out to customer service and I was surprised with the way they handled it. They were very responsive, picked up immediately when I called, and when I explained to them my situation about not liking the color, the shape, and then also how fake the center roses were, they asked me to send along some pictures, which I did, and they gave me an option, two options actually. One was for me to keep this bouquet and actually get a partial credit towards a future purchase, and the other one was actually a full refund, and they gave me a prepaid label for me to be able to bring this back. Now, what would you choose? For me, I actually decided to go with the full refund. I'm about to pack this up to return it because I would rather wait for another sale and look for the perfect one that I want instead of this lying here and me not fully loving it and then feeling forced to buy another one. And I also didn't know how much credit they were going to give me in terms of the partial credit. So for me, that's the best decision. But I was thoroughly impressed with their customer care. They were very responsive. And so if you did have to go with a company, I would recommend the Million Roses just in case you don't like their roses. They did seem very cooperative in terms of a refund policy. I am hoping that I can return these in time because tomorrow I am heading out on the world's second largest cruise ship. I think it's Symphony of the Seas. It may soon become the third because Royal Caribbean is coming out with a completely new one, and I'm taking his parents out on this cruise because they haven't gone in so many years. I think it's like about 10 years. But I can't wait to tell you whether or not it was a worthwhile trip and share with you all of the little tidbits. I'll see you in the next one.